What's like the craziest thing that's happened to you on a horse?
I knew that.
Like what? Yeah, like how crazy has it gotten?
Oh God, I don't know.
Come on.
No, not that crazy. No, everyone is alive.
Well,
We're going to do a business untitled horse trip.
Absolutely.
definitely
I love that.
do
Take a few of our-
business.
take a
Take
few
some
of
of
our
our other
guests.
guests.
Actually, Mel's going to have to be at base camp.
Or lose another
He can
like
be one
20
of the
pounds.
chefs.
Welcome to Business Untitled, episode whatever.
Voice?
What? No, I didn't put on. Welcome to Business Untitled, where we give each other shit all day long. Today we have very special guests from Milan, from Italy. They have a company called Riding Safari Club. It's cool as shit. It's about horse riding expeditions. Ginevra Rossini and Irene.
Irene.
The Ferrari you got well.
Yeah, and we had the pleasure of meeting these guys in Qatar one time, and I think their concept is super intriguing. I think it's really cool to have women entrepreneurs on, you know, badasses telling us what they're doing. So without further ado, welcome, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you for
much.
That
having
might be
us,
the
guys.
best intro he ever gave.
What an honor.
And he got the Irene just like that.
But she said almost. Was it? Did he get it
was a
right?
bit almost Irene.
It-
But we're getting there. We're
I'm
getting
getting
there.
there.
I can't pronounce regular English words, so I won't even try.
You got Ferrari, though.
Ferrari's in
That
there.
one is an easy one.
Do you have a Ferrari?
Not yet. When
We're planning on having one soon.
They're going to be so big that Ferrari's going to change the horse on the front to their horse.
Correct.
That's good. Well, why don't you guys like start off, give a little context about who you are, Riding Safari Club. Just give like the audience kind of a little summary.
So, Riding Safari Club started 2 years ago when, you know, the spark for horses has always been there all my life since I was a little girl. And riding has always been the place that I went back to throughout my whole life. Every time I was going through some sort of hardships, my dad was very sick for a long time, and then I had other family things going on. And every time the only true moment of like peace and tranquility was riding a horse. And so I figured out, I always went back to it, and it was, you know, the most positive pattern I had. So when 2 years ago, I started a WhatsApp group of all my closest friends, and they were just like asking me to take them on these rides because they were seeing me posting me riding all over the world, in Patagonia, in Mongolia, in Africa, and they were looking at, you know, the coolest landscapes, like on horseback, and they were fascinated. And so it started as a small WhatsApp group. We were in 5 in the beginning. And now we're more than 500 people in the WhatsApp group. And when I met Irene, the dream became reality. And we thought about, you know, we had something big in our hands. And we built, you know, we're structuring it, building it as we go. And
We had to cap the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
We only take reservations on our website now.
But yeah, so 2 years ago when I met Irene, that's where when it all started. And yeah, when we got together, when it all became true.
And now you guys are on the most famous podcast in America.
Can you imagine?
Now we know we're doing something right.
Now you made it.
And how about you, Irene?
So I actually was born in a farm where my parents were breeding horses, and my dad was training professionals. So my dad had been a professional, but it's a very hard sport to sort of maintain in time. And so I grew up riding. My dad never wanted me to like get too much into it. I think he was kind of scarred by the industry. And when I was a teenager, I went for my first year abroad when I was 15. So I kind of like dropped the sport because it's impossible to keep riding when you're living abroad. And I only came back home 2 years ago. I was over 30. And in all of the years I was abroad, I always sort of had to hold myself off from sort of going riding because I knew I would like get the addiction right away. It's a proper addiction. Like either you love it or you're non-interested. And for me, I knew it was like I really loved it. So until I knew I had the time to be able to ride, I held it off. And during COVID, I was living in Canada. I had moved to Canada 2 days prior. They shut the border, so I didn't really have many friends.
What part of Canada?
Montreal. And it was just a perfect time. I was like, finally, I have time in my hands. I'm in a country where it's easy to go horseback riding. And I went once, and the week after, I already had a lease on a horse. And that's when
When you
I
grew up
understood.
riding, were you like a show jumper?
Like, it was an activity. I would do some show jumping. It was never professional.
Right.
I would do some show jumping, but I never really it was never a sport that I actually did like with so much. Virginia
I used to show jump professionally, but it's what we do is, of course, it's riding, but it's a very different type. We take you on a journey. We take you on something that is an adventure. Yes, it's riding, but it's so much more than that. But I'm sure that we'll dive deep into it later.
Yeah, tell us about riding safari a little bit. Like, what's the kind of inspiration and just like, what is it basically?
That's the hardest part. The most important.
So, Riding Safari Club is, first of all, it's a community. So we take pride in like our members because we bring together people that are like-minded and like-hearted and that truly grasp a sense of connection and what we try to portray with our rides. So we really curate the rides in a way that is not luxurious because we want to redefine the meaning of luxury. Luxury for us is a way that we take care of every guest that comes on our rides and a way for us to really dig deep into local culture and heritage and the history and the equestrian culture that people have lived with for centuries. We have rides in Mongolia where Genghis Khan was, he conquered the biggest empire thanks to his horses, and that's fascinating. And we try to bring back all this legacy on our rides and our trips. So they are strong of cultural meaning, of history, and of people and the communities that we come across.
So on each safari, you've got a group of people that come together. So let's say Mongolia. You rent the Mongolian horses, which are different than
Yeah.
horses, wider,
That's crazy.
strong.
Yeah.
How do you even know that?
The 92 countries, freaking, and it's on my bucket list going on the Mongolian steppes.
Riding.
Yeah.
You're signed up.
There was a company called Budrum that used to do Budrum tours. I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay.
I was literally always going to do that, and I never did. So I'm going to
Yeah.
come on one of your tours.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
So how many safaris a year? How many people go on them? Give us a little.
So
And how many
as Ginny
places?
said, we started 2 years ago, so we're pretty fresh. Last year was a bit of a sort of trial. It was like we didn't really understand. It was more for friends and inner circle. And this year we sort of focused on getting just a little bit outside of that inner circle and seeing where it was going with word of mouth customers and so on. And we did 24 rides.
Wow.
So 2 per month.
And they're 4 days, 5 days, 1 week?
It depends. We have from 2 weeks to 3 nights.
How many people in?
We have, it depends again, because certain, like the capacity can go from 6 to 16. We don't have any bigger than that. 16 is already a large extent because we really focus on keeping the intimacy on the trip. We want everyone to feel like really a part of the group. We want the conversation to always be sort of one. And if you're sitting at a dinner table with like more than, 15
How many people did we have when we went to Uruguay?
Probably like
8?
12,
10?
maybe
12?
maybe 10 or 12.
'Cause that's probably the max. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
In
interesting.
fact, 16 is really, it's an anomaly. Normally, the cap is at 12, literally. And it's a really great way to sort of keep the unison in the group. There is so many moments of really that are really strongly bonding. And to be able to share them all together, it's something really powerful that you really take home. Every time I end a ride, I always like to take a few days, slower, to sort of soak in everything I've learned from each individual person that comes on a ride, and that's the reason we try to keep
In
them
all
small.
ages, or is it mostly people that are like your age?
We've had all ages. We've had, I think, we had over 70 once,
We
right?
had an oversight. Actually, he was
So
the
Mike was there.
coolest.
59 is the new 39.
We actually had a friend of ours that asked us to take her dad, and he was, 73? 70?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a ride in India, like in the middle of, it was a bit of a risky decision to take him, but apparently he was very fit and he'd been traveling for all his life, so okay. And on day 2, we were sitting around a bonfire, and there it comes.
Wine is here.
Wine has arrived.
We all got
Thank goodness.
Now
distracted.
it's all gonna become smoother. Grazie.
Good wine in plastic glasses.
And,
That's a redefinition of luxury.
exactly. This is having
redefining
wine now
luxury.
is a real
We're
luxury.
redefining
This
luxury
is
as
it.
we go.
Exactly. But so he came on the ride, and on day 2 we're around the bonfire, having our whiskey, and so we're starting to get curious because he had lived in Russia, in South Africa, in Siberia, in like very weird places. So
He was a spy.
he was a spy.
So
He was a spy. He was a spy, and there's even a book about him, like the spy and the.
He was
spy
MI6.
MI6. He was the head of MI6 for
wait, he was
20
actually
years.
a spy?
He was the head of MI6.
He was the head of MI6?
Yeah, yeah,
Can we say
yeah.
this?
Yeah, I got an OB.
I don't know, maybe
like,
we have
it's
to make
pretty
a-
well known.
No, but it's all.
Can we
if
get
you
this guy on a
got an OB
podcast?
by the Queen, he's an OB. He got an OB by the Queen, so he
That
was
is
our
crazy.
only over 70. So that's
like
pretty cool, actually.
I'm going to
Yeah.
be your first 60.
So wait. So this is an entire experience, 4 or 5 days. Do you guys cover the dinners, the sightseeing, the everything for 4 days? How much does this cost per person?
Man, we don't
Depends
want
on the
to
ride.
Yeah.
It's a luxury. It's
All of you can
luxury.
afford it, that's for sure.
It's a luxury trip. We want to talk about
Yeah.
it's a luxury trip.
We actually we haven't really like let's say spiked the prices. We've kept it really real. So on average, a day will cost $1,000 on a shared accommodation. Most of times we have shared accommodations because if it's a set-up camp that
Yeah.
moves and is mobile, it's not always possible to have the luxury of having, like an extra tent. Sometimes they're carried by camels, horses. So the culture is generally to have shared accommodation, and then on certain rides we have also private. But yeah, it's around $1,000 a day, and now that is with the most let's say the rides we started with that were very like into the wilderness. We're starting also on different sort of business typologies, let's say. We're starting to work also with the hotels, luxury hotels. So that obviously is naturally changing because the accommodation is probably in a luxury hotel. And then we try and find special elements around that or in the property, and then we try and make it authentic.
Is there a quality
Creative.
control on the horses? Because
There always
whenever I
is.
travel, I try to go riding and rent a horse. And sometimes
Whenever you travel.
you're beating on the horses, and they're tiny little guys running down the beach. And sometimes, like in Iceland, the beautiful horses.
Oh,
are
yeah,
just
the
like,
little yeah.
Every guy should only ride an Icelandic pony because it's so 5-step, so smooth.
So I only rode a horse once.
Oh, all right, go on.
And I remember thinking this. It was in Dieppe, next to Mike's house. It's probably not the best horses. They don't belong to Mike. Let me just clarify that. They were like
They're
stable.
mangy
He's
beasts.
only
Yeah,
into
like-
cows.
Not the nicest horses I've ever seen. And I remember getting up there and thinking, 3 steps in, I'm way too fat for this. And it just felt like I was really fat then. And I was like, this is not for me. So is that the case? Do you have to be like fit to ride a horse? Like,
We do have
Yeah, there are weight limits,
according
especially
to-
for
yeah.
the
yeah,
up.
it definitely was. I was over that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
No, it depends. Like certain rides, maybe like you can change horse and like go explain it.
there is a weight limit, but to protect the horse a bit, because if you're going up a mountain for 5 kilometers and you're like half the weight of the horse, of course for him it's going to be a bit of a heavy journey. So we try to either change the horse, or if you are a certain weight, we find the right breed or like a bigger horse, or maybe we find like a stallion that maybe is more structured to.
Yeah, that horse wasn't
or-
very fond of me.
Or you're just too fat and you can't go.
yeah.
Or you just get off and you run behind.
The new milk
The new
can
milk
definitely
will
go.
ride
The
a
new
horse.
milk and definitely.
The last time I tried, that horse hated me.
But to your
Felt
point,
it.
you were asking about quality control on horses. Like, how do you deal with that?
We scout. We scout the places and the operations that we work with, and we make sure that the horses are very well taken care of, because that's it's a very important part of what we do. And actually, we're trying to curate it, and the reason why we have the membership is because we ask everyone their riding experience, and we kind of match the horse and the rider.
Right.
So if you're a bit of a a bit scared or not very certain, we're gonna put you with our experienced horse who's a bit older, who's very safe and very chill.
Yeah.
If you want a bit
Then you
more
got the
of a-
problems with clients like me who say, I'm a great rider.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
really aren't.
Right.
No, absolutely.
But I love galloping.
That happens all the time, and we have formats in order to sort of understand it. And when we are in
She'll
sure,
catch you.
we'll ask for videos sometimes. It happens. Yeah, but it happens a lot.
I ain't sending videos.
I have a question, which is just like the intersection between you guys. Obviously, care about horses, care about the animals tremendously. It's a passion. This comes from passion, but in this in this crazy world, there's also I want to say there's animal rights, but that can mean a lot of different things, right? It can mean taking care of the horse well. It can mean let all horses be wild. How do you reconcile kind of ethical considerations around animals with your love and your business? How does that kind of come together?
I mean, our love for horses comes from a very young age, and it's part of our business to, be ethical in the way that the horses are treated. Sometimes it's very hard to navigate local cultures and historical traditions that are ancient with innovation that we're trying to bring, and sometimes it's a very fine line, and we act as a bridge between the two.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because in Mongolia, for instance, I don't know anything about riding, but I know that when Beth and Kira were there, they tie they don't chain them. They don't put them on a post. They tie their front feet together.
And they
right, or
they
their front-
flip them.
And they flip them, so
Like
that's
little
how
lambs.
they don't.
What?
So when you're in the desert in the middle of, I'm sorry, this was in Kyrgyzstan or something like that.
Kyrgyzstan.
Similar
it was in
culture.
similar culture. It was in Central Asia, and so you're used to maybe they put a horse in a pen or they tie it up to a post, right?
Yeah.
Like we see in the Old West. But what they would do is they would tie their front hoof to their back hoof and put them up on their back, and that's how they would stay for the night, something
Yeah.
like that, right?
It happens to
And
us
so-
a lot.
Kind of
Yeah,
fucked
and
up.
so you
tie-
have to plug into that local culture
Yeah,
and
and-
understand.
We're lucky because the people we find, and it's a big part of our work, it's like finding people who care. And so we start from a point where if we point something out, we have someone who's quite receptive to that commentary. And sometimes we'll just explain, listen, we understand it's part of your culture, and we understand that you're not hurting the horse or you're not trying to do something wrong. But the perception from someone who doesn't come from your culture might be different. So we try to get them to understand that not everyone sees in the same way. And in time we smooth angles here and
Yeah.
there.
It's a long process.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah.
I mean, in essence, you have the whole world as your playground. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think in every single part of the world, horseback riding is
Yeah.
part of the culture. In the West, in Argentina, in Chile,
The Middle East.
Yeah.
in Europe,
Not in the
Middle
hood.
East.
Not
Not in the hood.
Well, you actually, there is a really cool store here. I think it's Manhattan Saddlery or something like that. It's it's a really old saddle store in New York City. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you remember the movie
for sure.
Hair? They ride the horses through Central Park.
Yeah, and even in New
They're still-
Orleans, they have a big horse tradition. Remember when you go to those parades, there are those guys that are dressed up on
Yeah,
horses?
yeah.
I don't know. It
Yeah,
feels
yeah,
like it kind of comes out everywhere, right?
It is the most ancient bond between human.
It's the old
and
cars,
animals.
actually.
Yeah.
The horses are
It's
the old way of transportation. So,
Yeah.
Have you guys been to the Palio?
yeah. It's
I haven't. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
gotta go.
That's
You
where
gotta go.
that's where
Yeah.
exactly where we see tradition, but it's hard for us because
It's hard on the horses.
it's very harsh. even though for them, and there you have like the difference, like for them, the horse is like a god. Like it's literally,
Mel, this is a tradition. This one town in Italy, twice a year, the town is broken into like 15 districts, and each district hires a Sicilian to ride their horse. The town is in Siena. It's in
Tuscany.
It's in Tuscany.
Tuscany.
But the jockeys are all from Sicily, and there's a lot of bribing going on, and they drink all day long and they bet like crazy on their district, and the race is around the square. I think twice around the square. It doesn't matter if the jockey's on the horse at the finish line, and they're running in the brick square. The whole town is screaming, and it's just those wild. The horses are slipping, jockeys are getting thrown off. They're knocking at the. It's like a Chinese downhill on horse.
So it's so crazy. Like yesterday, we came to your talk, and I remember me and Dave was joking, and I was like, "I'm the only black guy in here." Like, like people from the hood don't know much about horses, right? But I grew up in Trinidad till I was 12, and as he said that, I was remembering I used to love horses because I used to go as a 8-year-old, 9-year-old to the horse races and bet.
And that's why.
Not even joking.
So you loved betting, no?
And so like me and all my friends, we would go, I think it was like Saturdays or the weekends, and just bet. As an 8-year-old, who would let you bet? I don't know. But then I came to New York, and it's like I never saw a horse again unless it was like a policeman riding a horse. And when I got around some very, friends, I like started hearing about it again. So it's like in Trinidad, part of the culture, it's not really riding horses, but it's horse betting. So we know a lot about horses. We know the horse's name, so on and so forth. And in the inner city in America, at least in New York, horses don't exist. Why do you think that is?
I mean, especially when you're obviously in cities, like horses and riding, obviously, like you need space, obviously. So it's very hard in the city. But that's why we're trying to create like a network of ranches or stables or, places where people can ride that are close to the city, so that even if you haven't seen horses in a long time or you haven't ridden, it's easier to, like, we facilitate the process of starting again or actually just starting.
Horses, they're very expensive to upkeep as well.
Yeah.
Between the shots and the food.
They're very expensive.
Even when,
Yeah.
you have a horse, your daughter's riding the horse, and she stops riding, the horse gets old, and you want to put the horse out to pasture and just let it live the last 10 years of its life not being bothered. There are places in Virginia or Vermont you can send these horses to. We've sent a few of our horses. And you still pay $500 a month.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It's like
just for your horse.
It's like a pension. It's a pension.
A horse is a
Pension.
old people's home.
Yeah.
And
I have a friend, shout out to Khalifa. He collects horses, and I was asking him like the price of some horses, and he was telling me like there's horses that cost $1 million. There's horses that cost $500,000.
well, every one of the horses you see riding in the Olympics, in the show jumping, in dressage, to ride an Olympic horse, those things can be as much as $30 million.
What?
Yep. And so, and they're geldings, which means they can't have kids. They've been snipped. And so they're literally trained to be these beautiful, Ferraris. And it's an honor. So a lot of times the riders don't own the horse, right? Because the riders are professional riders. They don't have the money to buy a $30 million horse, and so it's a patron. We know some from the U.S. And their daughters might ride on them, but they're not good enough to be in the Olympics, and then they'll find the guy to ride their horse in the Olympics.
What's the most expensive horse ever sold? Do you guys know?
There was actually, last week it came out, and it was 67 million.
67 million. Is it a gold horse?
It was it was an Arabian horse. Actually, it was a beauty contest horse actually, because especially in the Middle East, especially in Saudi, they have a great tradition of beauty contests, and horses for them are like it's part of the culture for them. So it's passed on generations in their families.
What determines if a horse is 10 million or 67 million?
I mean, it really, there's so many categories of like horses. So you can have like race horses. So obviously the horse that wins the most, obviously is going to be the one that is worth the most. In beauty contests, especially with Arabians, you have different like features that you're looking at and their movement, and they don't walk, they dance almost in their movement. So that for them is a way of determining their beauty, and they have proper beauty contests. And then there's obviously the Olympic disciplines like dressage and show jumping, which also, obviously, according to how much they win, the horses are going to
So
be.
I just got
I
it.
have a question. What distinguishes the price between a Picasso and like a piece of street art that you go and buy on the corner of 14th Street?
I mean, you know, the
Because
value that
one's
people
$100
put on
million.
it.
I think there's also
Well,
a difference in
yeah.
like having like a sort of
I mean, but that's
affection
different,
or
no?
No.
I
It's
don't
an
think
elite
it's so
group of
different
people
because
that
it's
decide they're going to play with
it's
toys.
pretty
Yeah.
divorced from utility. Meaning, okay,
Yeah,
there's a
it's
horse
not off the shelf.
Right. I mean, you can get a horse to get you from A to B for like $10,000 or whatever,
for like
right?
$500.
Or $500 or whatever. I'm saying, I mean, you have to feed it and things like that. But what makes those horses? They're like pieces of art, right? In a sense,
Yeah.
right? It's not. It's like not the utility. It is the fact that they perform like a Ferrari.
Yeah,
Right. So, but it's still like there's this thing. There's utility. There's
Right.
additional, and then there's like just art.
Last time we were in Saudi, we went to this new museum they built, and they had the entire museum was about horses.
Indiraya.
Indiraya.
Beautiful, and the Arabian stallions are just spectacular looking horses.
Yeah.
You think that camels will ever be as important as and valuable as horses? And
So
you know,
wait,
you know
no,
why I
no,
say
no,
that?
no.
I say
Because there's
no.
camel fairs and they sell camels for millions.
No, they do. When I was in Saudi Arabia, they had these things called beauty camels and
Yeah,
beauty camel
same-
competitions. And I remember one of the guys telling me these camels cost millions of dollars.
So I have a question. You guys are very worldly. You grew up in Europe, Italy, but you spent time in London as well, and you do business in Europe and also in the United States, and you're learning it over here. But like, what do you kind of admire about European business culture, or like, what do you see in the United States that you like? Is there a difference in business cultures, how people approach business, money? Like, just how does that hit you?
Yeah. In my personal opinion and like experience, I think working in the US is way easier in the sense that people are so much more direct and sort of down to business, and it's culturally allowed to just like say, okay, here's like our deal, here's what I need and what you need, and sort of like, let's come together and find a solution for both of us. In Europe, it's much more like a courtyard, basically. And you have to like court the people you have and create the relationship, which then ends in the long run to be something really beautiful because it sort of builds for a long time. But definitely it's much easier in my experience in the US. It's much faster.
I feel like also being like a woman, a team of women, I feel like especially in Europe, it's not that it's frowned upon, but I think it's not so much in the culture, especially young entrepreneurs, like especially Italy doesn't really like incentivize or like support you in a way that I think in the US is a much more like motivating, and I think that people really like if they see that you have the right toolkit and like you have the right mindset, I think people in the US are much more, down for business.
That's
Yeah.
very true.
If you mapped out so how many different locations have you done rides in?
60.
No.
60, wow.
No, we have people
haven't.
coming from 60 countries
we
on
have,
our rides, but
like about 15, 20
countries we
And-
work
like,
with.
yeah, 15, and then we have
15
more
rides,
coming.
in
Yeah,
essence.
15 that we've done.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you broke them up geographically, is it 5 in the U.S., Latin America?
No, actually, in the US, we still haven't finalized the ride.
Oh, they're working on it though.
Yeah, we're
Work in
working
progress.
on it.
Wyoming.
I'm interested. Like, where are these rides taking place?
Oh, literally, like from Patagonia to Mongolia. We have several in Italy and Spain. We have Africa, like the safaris in Kenya and Tanzania, and we have some upcoming in South Africa, Morocco.
What was your favorite?
My favorite
One ride.
My favorite one ride I have to say is like following the migration, as we were talking about yesterday. Like there is nothing that is more exhilarating and thrilling than being able to, canter next to zebras, wildebeest, and
Right.
lions, and
Did that feel dangerous at all?
a bit, a bit. But we do it in a way that is safe. Obviously, like it's, we trust the people that we take. That's why, we have to vet a bit our members.
We have very experienced guys.
But we have very
What's your
experienced
favorite
mates.
ride? And you can't use Africa.
I can't, exactly. I always come second in that one question. No, I love being outdoors and I love like nature. So for me, Patagonia was a place where I really felt like, wow, no one has passed here before. Like I'm the first person like crossing this piece of land, or like I have the privilege of seeing a piece of land that has never been spoiled.
really cool.
And
Pristine.
it's
Yeah.
real privilege for me.
So does everyone have to, like me, I can't ride at all, right? Is there, like, can I go on one of your trips? Like, do I need training to, like, train in the U.S. first, like, before I come? Or I just kind of, like, learn? Is it easy to learn to ride?
So we take care of everyone, even if you're a non-rider, if you're completely freaking out in front of a horse. Like my best friend is like completely terrified of horses. But we're building retreats and programs that are in very beautiful locations, in 5-star hotels, on a beach where you can also surf. So we create a program that is, built to make you connect with a horse, even just from the ground. So we have horse, like whisperers, we call them. And from the ground, they will like show you how to interact and how to use your body language to get closer to a horse, to your own pace. And the horses really act as a mirror of yourself, almost. And as the closer you get, and the closer he will get, and the more you trust him, the more he will trust you. And you'll end up creating a bond and a relationship that is really cool if you really let it be.
Sound almost
So-
like Game of Thrones.
No.
I really didn't see that one coming.
The high-end rehab places and the high-end healing places
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
equine therapy, where you
Yeah.
learn how to pick the horse's foot up and
Also,
pet 'em.
prisons.
If-
There's
if
a
he-
lot.
Like
What kind of
regaining
therapy?
It's
trust.
called equine therapy.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Equine is
Horse
horse.
Oh.
Or
and
hippotherapy.
If you're nervous, they're nervous. And so you learn to, calm down
Yeah.
because the horse calms
Yeah.
down. It's really very beautiful.
Because you guys know more about horses, but they're originally like prey, right? In a sense, so they have to be very attuned to what their environment
Yes.
is, and that runs through
Yeah.
them. Is that right?
Absolutely, and they also have like a lot of like ancestral trauma because they were used so much for like wars and challenges that villages and countries were going through. So there is a lot of like also stored trauma in them, and they definitely like act as a mirror. Like they're so sensible that they can
Receptive.
they're perceptive. We see it all the time in rides. Like as soon as maybe like something happens or we're unsure of something, like if the group sort of starts to panic, let's say, panic is a strong word, but like worry, like the horses will act upon that. So our first job is to sort of like calm everyone down. It's like nothing's happening, it's okay. Like we can maybe lose our road or whatever. Like as long as people are calm, horses are calm.
Yeah. What's like the craziest thing that's happened to you on a horse?
I knew
Ellen?
that.
Like what? Yeah. Like how crazy has it gotten?
Oh God, I don't know.
Come on.
No, not that crazy. No, everyone is alive. Let's start with that. Okay. So, this is for you, girl.
Okay, no, I'm thinking of Ferdi in Africa.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
But you were there, so you can tell
Okay.
it.
So in Africa, basically, one of our probably biggest riders who's come on like 6 of our rides by now. He got kicked by another horse, which is something that it can happen. He got too close and he was cantering in the back of the other one. The other one got a bit annoyed and he kicked him and he got his knee. Very painful, and he was about to faint. So we got him off the horse. We were in the middle of in the savannah, lions everywhere. So we stopped. We got him off the horse. We gave him some water, and there was one tree, literally one tree, and we told him go in the shade and sit down and just take a minute.
Stop crying.
Stop crying, don't be a pussy, and get back. Anyway, he went behind the tree, sat down, but he didn't realize that he was in a puddle of hippo shit.
Down here.
Yeah.
He was fainting, or like with a knee that was big like this and full of people everywhere. So, and then, so I was like, this is not your day, buddy. But
This is not your day.
Forever known as Hippopoopo.
Did he come back
Hippo shit
after
boy.
that?
yeah, he's
He's
one
a
of them.
trooper.
Yeah, he's a trooper.
Here's
Yeah.
the hippo shit.
That's the hippo. Shout out to hippo shit.
How is it
gonna kill
working? How is it working together? I mean, you guys are partners, friends. Like, what are some of the challenges, or how do you split your responsibilities? How do you work on that? Do you talk about it a lot? Do you have a structure?
We're coming to talk about it a lot. It also, like, how everything happened, like, it wasn't really like planned out from the beginning. So we didn't sort of structure our relationship, our working relationship at the beginning, and we're starting to understand now the importance, especially like the more we go, on with work, there's more workload, there's maybe other people perhaps getting involved, and there's a team to manage. So it's starting to get really important. So we're finding our ways of like having clarity within each other, and having a friendship as a friendship came first, and that sort of like at the beginning made it very personal. So it was a bit harder to sort of communicate, but we're sort of setting the boundary of saying like there's our friendship and there's our business, which is our common baby, and we both love it and we both have a vision. And sometimes it's not the same because Jeannie is the complete visionary. She's very creative. She meets all sorts of people, interesting people. So she's always full of things that she wants to do. And I'm sort of trying to, follow a strategy, keep flexibility, but also we have to like...
So it feels like it's a business that you didn't need a lot of capital to start.
No, not at all, actually.
Right.
Yeah,
and so, great. So you guys own most of your business because you didn't need any investors.
Yeah,
And
we've
it
bootstrapped
grows as it goes.
all the way. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, we also haven't invested in marketing yet. We really want our brand to be really solid and our customers to be really, like, to relate so much to us.
Is the next step, so far you've been on all the rides, at least one of you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you haven't. I thought you guys have been on some.
No,
where you-
No,
between
yeah,
the two of us, we've been to
Right.
all the
And
rides.
so-
You're on every ride.
No. We have been at least once during the scouting to all the rides.
Is that what
but
you
now
mean? Oh, sorry.
we have local partners that take
So now
over.
you have local partners
Yeah.
that take over, that
Yeah.
know your culture, that know
Yeah.
your vibe, that know your... Because that's the hardest part of
Yeah.
a lot of these luxury,
Absolutely.
Dave and I have been in a couple of these businesses, and you can get one location great, maybe two, but as you try to scale, keeping the heart and soul is hard to do.
Yeah.
And so have you thought through how you're going to keep the heart and soul of... I mean, you guys have bubbly personalities, you're riders, you love horses. Like, who... If I show up and I'm like, I'm going to Mongolia, and I get some grumpy old guy, I'm like, what the fuck just happened to me?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you make sure your brand keeps its...
Integrity.
Quality and integrity. I think the most important part of what we do is to find people that really share our values and our DNA and understand where we come from. And literally the scouting part of what we do is the most important, because once we decide to work with someone, we share protocols, we share, like programming that we have in place, and then recurrently on a structured basis, we go back and we make sure that the experience is, what we had thought about.
And it's a pretty straight revenue split at that point. With those
Very
Yeah,
straightforward,
correct.
yeah.
Do you guys have, like, you've written down protocols, and
Yeah.
did you do that day one, or it was like something that you had
It's
to
a process.
evolve
Pretty
That's
into?
where
early,
evolving.
pretty early,
Pretty
but
early?
yeah, it sort of came, and also we sort of try to protect our product from any upcoming competition, like in a way that like we always want to have a product that is different. So we always try to sort of make tweaks every year or two. We might change a part of the itinerary, we might change the merch or like the decor, like something always changes so that we always sort of like keep a difference. But yeah, for sure.
We treat every ride almost as if it were like theatrical. It's every ride is our stage. So we have like elements of surprise. We take care of the outfits. We send style guides to the riders before they come. We prepare our like
Have
local
you done
guides.
like 40th birthdays, 30th birthdays?
We've done anniversaries,
60th
proposals, bachelor parties, bachelorettes, birthdays. Yeah.
Mel, your bachelor party. That's what we're having.
I gotta get engaged first.
We're ready. We're preparing already.
We're preparing already.
You know what that's really cool to hear you talk about, like the theatrical performance. I've never been on a ride, and I'm not much of a horse rider, although I'm going to go on one.
Yes.
I'm going to drag
Yes.
these two
I'm gonna
as
come
well.
too.
I'm going to drag these two guys too. But talk about marketing, because you're so good at it. I mean, you're like, for me, what attracted me about their brand, in addition to you guys being great, bubbly,
Thank
fun
you.
people, was just like the capturing of it on Instagram, on your
Mm-hmm.
videos, it just like it really makes sense. So talk about that a little, because I think your connection to how you market yourselves and your company is really strong.
So we actually haven't we haven't allocated any budget in marketing as of now. As of now, it's been organic growth, and people love our rides a lot, and it's word of mouth. People go back after a ride, they tell their friends, their family, their loved ones. So it's grown very organically. But our strong suit for sure is our social media, because we always have professional photographers on most of the rides, and now we're starting to get videographers and drone artists. And I think that really is starting to create, people start to understand in a way that is more in depth. But our Instagram for sure has been a great, a great tool, and we've leveraged it a lot because it's really, really helped us. And we're trying to stay relevant with, finding some things that are relevant for the culture in that moment, and then we try to add them on to what we're saying about the rides, and we always try to keep the spark alive.
We're really trying to sort of show what we love. So we're really everything we post,
Honest.
it's because we actually just love it and we find it super cool. So mostly it's that.
There is some kind of connection with horses, I guess, with humans, right? Because I remember California, that drive to Vegas, I would always look out to see if I see wild horses. I don't know if it's a thing, but I felt like I saw it somewhere. Nihi Samba, I remember just falling in love with that because I saw a ton of horses on the beach, right? And my friend Khalifa posts his horses every other day. Now I'm like, wow, those horses are nice. And since I started looking at your page, I'm like, damn, I love horses. So I do have to go on a ride.
Absolutely. And
Where do you guys...
Snoop
You're
Dogg.
going to junior camp first.
Where do you guys see...
Dave and I'll send you pictures.
Where do you guys see
We've
your
ridden horses
business?
together, yeah. Go on.
Big picture, the dream 5 years from now.
That's a great question.
we have the answer.
They're living the dream.
No.
Let them answer the
Our
question.
dream is to have our headquarters, but have our rides all over the world.
Where would the headquarters be?
That's a great
That's
question.
why we don't have one yet, but we want. No, yeah, we would love to have RSC ranches.
Yeah.
Where people can sort of come and, let's say you want to work on certain, it can be a discipline or it can be just a connection with the horse. We would love to have, activities where people come together. You can rent out the property maybe, have a cool programming all around horses, and they have so much to offer that we really see it being it would be a dream for us, and I think for everybody else as well.
But I think it's
Yeah, but
something.
where are you located? Such an interesting question, right?
Yeah, I think there's no one place.
No.
As we said, we've based off our locations are mainly in places where there is a strong equestrian culture. So I would start from somewhere like that. But we're just probably not there yet, but it's in our dreams and we're looking at it for sure.
How many Mideast trips have you done?
How many what, sorry?
Yeah, horse trips in the Mideast, in the desert. Is that
In the desert, we've done.
Yeah, we don't know.
We actually had an incredible one in Jordan that was all
wrapped up
in a
Insane.
bow.
Yeah.
It was insane. It is insane.
It's the one we're the most looking forward to.
Yeah, and
For
hopefully
sure.
we'll get
Do you
back.
go to Petra?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many special elements to that one that we will not
Saudi.
spoiler out today.
So, but Saudi is coming up. Abu Dhabi is coming up.
Cantering in the desert per se is the coolest experience because even for beginners, for someone who's been in the saddle a couple of times, it's very safe. The horses are normally so used to the open spaces, so they don't go crazy when they see the infinite in front. And if you were to fall off, it's sand. it's really rare that you fall off because they have nowhere to trip on. So it's a great experience for everyone.
And the Arabians are like the Ferraris of horses, so you can really go.
I'm an Icelandic pony guy. I've ridden a lot of horses, and every time my ribs hurt, my undercarriage hurts. And when they're like, it's their tendency like walking horses. They have a fifth step, and they just go so smooth. So we were there with a bunch of wrestlers and other knucklehead athletes up in Iceland. And it was one of those days when it stayed light 24 hours, and we went on a midnight ride. You know, big guys on small horses, and it was so much fun. Remember
You
that?
need to show us the video.
Yeah.
I mean,
That video's golden.
Just so smooth.
That could be a ride. Big guys on small horses.
So we
Mel,
always ask
that was you.
every guest, right? Like, did you grow up poor? Did you grow up middle class? Did you grow up rich?
Mel, you're looking at it.
Mel,
I don't even have to ask that question.
someone.
For my audience,
I
audience,
think our audience is smart enough to understand the answer.
can they answer it?
We probably both grew up with a good education and good possibilities. In my case, my parents are both divorced multiple times, and I had to split life, through different siblings and things. So I definitely consider myself very lucky, but I did seek my independence. When I was 14, I had my first job, which was delivering Chinese takeout on my scooter, because in Italy you get a scooter at 14. And my mom would ask me, why are you going to work? There's a tornado. You're on a scooter, you're delivering dumplings. And I just always craved for that independence. And I think it was, it was a strong drive for me. So I don't know if it answers your question,
What
it
was
was
it
I think it
something.
secretly answered my
What was
question.
what was at the base of that drive, do you think? We ask people, this is where we try to go, is what is it that gave you that drive?
To the core, it might be a bit personal, but I hated, really hated seeing my parents argue for money. Mm-hmm. So I didn't care to receive it from them, and I just really wanted my own money. Mm-hmm. So I didn't care if it was raining, windy, whatever. I just want, and I'm a Sagittarius, so I've always had to do. I could see that. I've always wanted to do many things and wanted the liberty to do those things. So for me, it was very strong, and I've always worked even during university. I love working. It defines me. It just gives me, my sort of self-expression or So for me, it was that way.
Yeah, Ginevra.
Me, I grew up, in a good family. I grew up, my mom was quite well off, very wealthy. I grew up super lucky. That's why I was riding since I was very young, because actually show jumping is an extremely expensive sport and no one can afford it. At 14 years old, it's impossible to be able to afford to ride. But then at 18, I had a big fight with my mom, and what she did was she sold my horse, and that really pissed me off. And then I said, okay, now I have to find a way. But then I realized it was not actually that easy. But my power has always been people mostly. I always had I've always been good with people. I've always have to travel, and I came to live in New York super young, and I think meeting people and kind of, that has always been my strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
Huge charisma.
Yeah.
Huge.
No, but
Are you the networker of the group?
Yeah.
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 And you're the operator. How hard has it been? If you think back, did you think it would be this hard to build a business? Is it about what you thought? How does that?
I'm gonna answer that.
You guys argue before every trip, like we argue before every podcast?
we argue before, during, and after.
Yeah, it's a very sisterly bond. I have two sisters, so I can tell you it's a very sisterly
Same
bond.
thing.
But no, I was not structured at all to make this become a proper business. For me in the beginning, it was a passion project because I loved it so much and I just really wanted to do it, but it was out of love and spontaneity, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But then I said, okay, if my WhatsApp group was 5 people, now it's 500, maybe there's a market, maybe there's something here, maybe people keep asking me, they just want to join me. So, and then Edith came along, and she's like very methodic, very precise, like
Not so much, actually.
nah, she the benchmark is me, so yeah. So then
She's doing
she,
child labor.
so I guess, yeah, I really needed that, we're a good team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
We're a
very
good
complimentary, so
We're going to bring you back in 2 years.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're going to see what it's become.
Well, yeah, it's cool to the fact that they're partners, founders together.
I love
it's
that.
it's really interesting too because you have to find that balance. I was still partners with my brother, but was partners with my brother for 30 years, really. And we just found our balance, and it wasn't always spoken, but like there was unspoken pieces. He would handle, I would handle. Sometimes we'd cross over, sometimes we'd fight. But it was very effective because we had these like kind of two different skill sets. And for me, what I found also was like there's like respect at the bottom of that. So no matter how it might get in a moment, you kind of have this reservoir of like trust and respect that keeps it in a place, right? Where you're still driving forward for the common good.
It could not be possible if there wasn't that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it really could not be possible. So
Well, what makes it also so wonderful to watch is that you guys are friends, and it's a unbelievably fun industry, right? It's taking people on these wonderful adventures that they're going to remember the rest of their life. So you got to participate, your energy, their energy, even though it might rain some days and a horse might break its leg. Broadly, it's, you're going to have little things go wrong.
That hasn't happened.
But you're going to have things go wrong. But it's a broadly joyous adventure.
Yes.
You're on,
Yeah.
So
Have
It's
you ever
very
had
exciting.
to kick anyone off a trip?
No.
No?
Actually, the best, like, what I love the most is that during the trip, people really come down to, like a sort of, like, true essence. Like, there's really something that builds, like, with being a group. And, like, no, we've never had any bad experience with people. Like,
I
it's
have a
really
better
cool.
question along the same lines. Is there anyone, you don't have to say who, that can't come back on a trip?
Yes.
We have our own internal.
We have a wait
Blacklist.
list and we have a blacklist.
We have a wait list. We have an infinite wait list.
That's cool too because that's important. Right?
Yeah.
That's important.
It's
like a lot
really
of,
important for us who we accept. Like, it's not a matter of who you're friends with. It's like, it's just your attitude has to be there because it will spoil everyone's vacation, and you don't know what they've sacrificed to be on that vacation in terms of times, energy, money, and so on. So we really value the fact that people choose to travel with us. It's so important for us. So it's definitely our job to protect that person's vacation.
Yeah.
So at the end of our podcasts, we always ask the guests to give us an ounce of gold. And this is actually special because you're our first dual podcast people.
Oh, wow.
And so Dave, because he's learning magic, was able to take the ounce of gold and break it into two.
I actually wasn't have 2 ounces of gold.
you would set me all up.
I know. Well,
Then you-
something happened.
All right. Well, you guys
so-
get lucky.
Yeah. So, talk about what an ounce of gold is. Here's your ounce
I'm
of gold.
curious. Okay.
Here's your ounce of
Wow.
No, but
By the way, this
this is
has
our
to go.
first podcast. We're gonna.
gold. Yeah.
You're rich.
You guys
You're
are now rich, but this goes towards our free trips.
Guys, this is
So an ounce of gold.
Such a
We have one sponsor who is no longer a sponsor. They were our great sponsor. They gave us these ounces of gold, and then
That's
we ran
so
out and
cool.
we're using our own.
We're sponsored by Dave, Barry, and Irby. By the way.
JM Bullion, because they liked our story. And we were originally going to call it an ounce of gold, but Mel hated the title. And Business Untitled kind of took off, so I'll give him credit. But the subtitle was an ounce of gold. And so, like, your
Or
ounce
Mike
of gold.
and Friends.
Yeah, it's kind of like you've said a lot of great things here, but like, what do you want to leave the listeners with? Each of you, your ounce of gold. And by the way, while you're thinking about that, I just looked at gold's at like 26.70,
26.70.
right? And when we started
started at
doing this, it was
1700.
like at like 1800, just
And
less than a year
Gold,
ago.
and it's going to be at 3,000, then it's going to be at 10,000.
Okay.
And so keep it in your pocket.
Okay.
Don't
I'm
spend
gonna
it.
say something first that, like, you guys should really have your faces on here.
We're
That
working on
was
it.
the whole plan for
We're working on
our
it.
next season. We need a little bit more viewership.
The next thing is that it's really scary to like sort of venture off. Like I left my career job, and like I've always sort of felt I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it can be really scary, you know, and it is scary every day. Like so many days, especially like the more you talk to people, and we love to talk to people, but like people who are very business savvy, so they'll probably be trained and wired to sort of find what can go wrong. And like being always solution oriented, being like sticking to your, you know, like your vision, keeping that flexibility, but like really being focused on what you want for yourself, and remembering that you're always learning, like from everything you're learning, like whether it is finding the right insurance, you know, like then you're going to be able to say that like, okay, I've done that once. So even if I didn't know anything about insurance, which is not sexy right now, but like, like finding those things that like scare you so much and like doing them once so that then it's done. And yeah, that for me is like what every day, even when it looks hard, like I remind myself, like I've done so many things that like I had no clue about. And now they're sort of part of my routine.
I will say attitude probably is the most important thing, because there can be days that are harder, but if you keep a good mindset, a good attitude, and you know you're positive, I think that's probably one of the most important things. And then your relationships, I think our relationship and you know how we navigate through it together, I think that's one of the most important things. And also the love for what we do, because we really, really love what we do. And I think we would not be doing what we will not be here. So
Yeah.
no.
Well,
We're going to do a business untitled horse trip.
we
Absolutely.
should definitely
I love that.
Take a
do
few
a
of our-
business.
take a
Take
few
some
of
of
our
our other
guests.
guests on trip with you guys.
Pick 10
yeah, it's
people.
actually pretty
Yeah.
good
Well,
Unfortunately,
idea.
Mel's going to have to be at base camp.
We're losing another
He can
like
be
20
with the
pounds.
chefs.
That's a great idea, actually. That's a
Now we can
fantastic
get you.
We
idea.
would love to have you guys
You can take
over.
a week lesson
I
before
hope
the
so,
trip.
because now I'm excited.
Yeah, and I want to just say, like, well, thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you
Our
It's a
so
first
much.
pleasure.
podcast, by the
Yes.
way.
That's amazing.
So it's
a first
All
for
Going down in
Crossroads.
history.
And where can our listeners, viewers find you guys? Where's the best place for them to go?
Instagram is the best place at Riding Safari Club. Our
You want to give them
website.
your WhatsApp chat?
It's capped.
Yeah.
We
But
said
that's
it's
capped.
not an excuse.
Yeah, you're not it.
But Riding Safari Club, you should check it out because the Instagram is just so inspirational. You're going to want to learn how to ride horses. That's what I want to do. I can kind of ride a horse. We rode horses together in Argentina.
I'm sure
which
you
is-
guys can.
Which is,
And by the way, like there was a question earlier about like the entry barrier of riding. Like it's so much lower to other sports that people try to do every year, like surf, kite surfing. Like
It's
you're
a lot
out there,
easier
you're
than surfing.
paddling, you're not in your environment, you're like drinking water, like getting slapped in the face
very
every
true.
other set.
Yeah.
And it's much easier. Like people think of riding as like race riding or so on, but like it's really easy to learn how to ride.
I'm
It's
motivated.
not that
Riding
much.
Safari Club, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Business
Moving
Untitled, Riding Safari Club.
Thanks
right
so much,
here,
Love
girls.
it.
Right?
Guys,
you
thank
so
you so
much.
Thanks,
much.
Janine.
It was
Thanks,
such a
Ginevra.
pleasure.
Pleasure to have you guys.
Thank you
you.
so much.
Yep.